Good morning. On this Saturday, June 15th, we're going to look at Nehemiah chapters 4 through 7. Tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, of course, the third Sunday of the month, we'll have worship with Holy Communion at both Mabel and Sutton, and Our Savior's in McHenry. You're welcome to join us live on Facebook at 9 o'clock tomorrow, and if you're home, you can have communion elements ready and join us that way as well for communion. As we look at these 4 chapters today, Nehemiah is in the city of Jerusalem, and they are rebuilding the city of Jerusalem and the walls around the city of Jerusalem. And chapter 4 begins with, it says, "And when Sanballat heard that we were building the wall, he was angry and greatly enraged, and he mocked the Jews." And so Sanballat was the governor of Samaria, which was, a nearby land. And of course, Samaria, the Samaritans and the Jews, there's been this animosity, especially, we heard about it in Jesus' day as well. And another person that's mentioned is Tobiah, and he was an official within the Persian service, that was the king of Persia that was kind of, he was ruling everything that way, Babylon. But there were some that were very adamantly opposed to the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And still today, it's just, after World War II, Israel was reformed as a nation, and there was much opposition to that. And still today, there is much opposition in the world to Israel. And there's so much, there's bitter fighting there right now. Again, you know that. But the lands are both claimed by both the Jews and the Muslims, and where the temple is, and there's just such animosity there, and we see that way back here all these years ago, that and the animosity like between Cain and Abel, between Ishmael and Isaac, that stuff is just carries on. It's like the Hatfields and McCoys, only in so many ways, so much worse. But they're rebuilding the wall, and when Nehemiah hears of this opposition, he prays to God and asks for God's blessing, God's guidance, and these other officials, they're threatening to come and attack. So the people that are building on the wall, they're building with one hand and got a sword in another hand, or they're wearing their weapons anyway. And there are, half of them are assigned to guard and to protect in case this attack comes. And has to make everything so much more difficult. But verse 10, "But Judah said," this is the people, the land of Judah, the people, "the strength of the burden is failing, and there is too much rubbish that we are unable to work. And our enemies said they know and see anything before we come, and they're going to kill them, and we're going to stop the work." And so the threats were being heard by the common people. I don't know if I should say the common people, but by all the people, by the workers and their families and everyone. And there was fear. And so then, as I said, they were all carrying their bows and their spears and their swords, and everyone was prepared at all times, and there were guards set at night. And you can imagine with the work going on and the guarding and the switching of the duties, people had to be just getting worn out and exhausted, and they were, and like verse 19, Nehemiah is talking, he says, "And I said to the nobles, the work is great and widely spread. We're separated far from one another," and so they know that it's, they're spread out and they're spread kind of thin. And if an attack comes, this is a message that if the horn sounds, you come. We all rally together to fight. And, verse 21, "We labored at the work and half held the spears from break of dawn till the stars came out." And, they're working dawn till dusk. And in our part of the world today, dawn comes, 5:30, and dusk is about 10. That'd be a long, long day. But in the middle latitudes, it's, more kind of 12 hours pretty much year round that way. But still, long days of work and struggle to going on to building the wall. Chapter 5, there was a great outcry of the people and of their wives against their Jewish kin. I mean, some of the others, they weren't all in favor of rebuilding this wall. And part of it was because they were being taxed heavily, and they were going into debt with their land. They weren't able to farm their land. They were, selling their wives, their sons, their daughters as slaves, and falling into debt because of this. And Nehemiah sees all of this, and basically it's, hey, you can't charge interest. And the interest rate was basically 1% per month, which would be 12% a year, which is, pretty steep interest. And so they agreed that they wouldn't charge interest. And that was kind of going back into the laws of Moses too, that a Jew wasn't supposed to charge a fellow Jew interest. It was okay to charge a Gentile interest, but not a fellow Jew. And so it came back to the point of then these people being able to live their lives, support their land, having stuff going on, and not being burdened with this tax in addition to everything else that was going on. And but they continue working on the wall. Verse 14, moreover, from the time that I was appointed to be their governor in the land of Judah from the 20th year to the 32nd year of King Artaxerxes. So 12 years Nehemiah was there as they were building. He said, and in all of this time, neither I nor my brothers, my sisters, the people that are dependent upon me, we haven't come to you and laid our burdens on the people. We have provided for ourselves, and he's just showing it, reminding them, and it's kind of like in the New Testament, Peter and Paul, both in their missionary journeys, would work to support themselves rather than to be a burden on the community that they were there. As if they were a tent maker, they would be working with leather and doing stuff that they would to make their living in addition to spreading the word of God. Chapter 6, it was reported to Sanballat and Tobiah and to Geshem the Arab and to the rest of our enemies that I had built the wall and there was no gap left. So the wall is finished. And, the city within really isn't rebuilt yet. There's not houses and there's not all this stuff, but the walls are rebuilt and finished. And these enemies then send letters to Nehemiah, asking him, inviting him to come so that they can talk about this. And of course, Nehemiah finds out that, well, it's a plot to kill him, and so he doesn't go. And they continue to send, I think it was 4 letters that they send to him, but he sees through it and he doesn't go. And then I get a little confused in verse 15 and following here. The wall was finished on the 25th day of the month of Elul in 52 days. I mean, he'd been there for 12 years. I don't understand this. It was finished in 52 days because there's just no way that I can see that, this reconstruction had started under Cyrus and under Darius and now under King Artaxerxes. And the people had been struggling and working and maybe, enough of it had been done so that, it did just take them. But I can't see this 52 days. That's really confuses me. And, probably confuses you too, but I can't find anything that makes sense of that to me. It says, when all of our enemies heard of it, all the nations around us were afraid and fell greatly in their own esteem, for they perceived that this work had been accomplished with the help of our God. And so these other nations are aware of the God of Israel. And and like Sanballat of Samaria and these others, they were all aware of that. And it says so that nobles of Judah sent many letters to Tobiah, and Tobiah's letters came to them, and many in Judah were bound by oath because, families and all of this stuff. But it's opposition to the work of God and to the people of God. And Nehemiah doesn't fall into the trap of it. Chapter 7 is, again, a lot of genealogy listing the people who are the gatekeepers, the singers, and all of those things. And, a lot of names there and credit given to those who contributed to the building of the walls.